Welcome back to the Business Mechanic Show. I'm your host, Vaughn Sigmon, co-founder of Results Driven Leadership. Now, before we dive in, do me a quick favor. If you're getting value from this show, hit that like button, share it with your network, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, you can grab a free copy of my book, The Roadmap to Difficult Conversations, using the link in the show notes. Let me start out by asking you something. How many conversations are you avoiding right now? That tough feedback you should have given your employer, maybe a peer. That accountability talk with a peer who's maybe dropping the ball. Or maybe even that uncomfortable discussion with your own boss. Now, here's the hard truth. When you avoid these conversations, you don't just dodge conflict. You send a silent message. I'm okay with this behavior continuing. It's not what you say. It's what you don't say that gives approval to poor behavior or poor results. And over time, that destroys trust. It crushes morale. And in the end, it'll hamper, if not kill, performance. And the crazy part, most managers don't avoid tough conversations because they don't care. They avoid them because of fear. Fear of conflict. Fear of being the bad guy. Fear of emotions running hot. And here's the kicker. Every one of those fears is psychological, not practical. I've said it before, fear is an acronym. False expectations appearing real. And in today's episode, I'm going to break down exactly why managers avoid difficult conversations, maybe even you, and more importantly, how you can overcome these fears with real-world tools that you can start using today, within minutes. This stuff works, y'all. And by the end of this episode, you'll know how to handle these moments when someone is flat out wrong. Yeah, you know they're wrong. But do they? Well, if they knew it, they wouldn't be doing it. Get it? And very often when approached the wrong way, emotions are going to run high. And to you, the stakes feel overwhelming. And after today's podcast, you'll be able to walk away with strategies that don't just fix problems, they build trust. They sharpen performance. And they make you the leader people actually want to follow. And if you want to take this deeper, I've got you covered. Because again, there's a link in the show notes to my book, The Roadmap to Difficult Conversations. It's free for you to download. Just hit the link in the show notes. So stick with me, because this episode might just be the turning point that transforms the way you lead and communicate. All right, let's get into it. We have the opportunity and often face the need to have difficult conversations. Many managers avoid them or delay them for fear of some outcome they want to avoid. And generally, it is conflict avoidance. Sometimes it's that they fear that person will quit or they'll act out in some way that's going to be very uncomfortable. And here are the 10 most common reasons I've documented through the decades. I've had thousands of difficult conversations. I've become very good at them. I love having them because I have confidence in having them. I have confidence because I've utilized what I'm sharing with you during this series of podcasts on difficult conversations. And I'll warn you, this podcast cuts deep. Managers don't avoid tough conversations because they're lazy. They avoid them because psychology kicks in and fear takes the wheel. And here are the 10 most common psychological reasons Managers dodge difficult conversations with peers, direct reports, and sometimes bosses. Number one, fear of conflict. Managers worry the conversation will spiral into an argument. They don't like to argue. They don't want to put themselves in that place. And the thought of escalation, raised voices, tension, awkward silence keeps them from even starting. So the behavior continues. Fear of damaging relationships, number two. They tell themselves, if I push too hard, well, they'll resent. We all have this deep desire, a desire to be liked. And that overrides the responsibility as a leader you have. However, you can't avoid rocking the boat. Part of your job. They can't fix what they don't know about. Number three, fear of being seen as the bad guy. I, like almost everybody else, we don't want to be the villain in someone else's story. We don't want them to hate us or to speak ill of us behind our backs. And managers often equate giving tough feedback with being harsh, not realizing that silence is actually quite more damaging long term. You're going to have to deal with this sometime. So why delay it and make the conversation later on even more difficult? It's going to reach a point. And you don't want to put yourself in the position where you're going to be overheated, frustrated, and have the conversation in the wrong way. Number four, fear of not knowing what to say. Sometimes our minds just go blank. And in the moment, we don't know what to say. So you have to plan these conversations. You don't want to worry about stumbling, saying the wrong thing, or flat out failing to articulate the concerns clearly. So many managers avoid the risk by avoiding the conversation. Number five, fear of emotional reactions. Many managers dread tears, anger, defensiveness. They feel unprepared to manage these raw emotions in real time, so they rather sidestep than engage. They don't want the drama. Number six, fear of losing control. You see, some managers worry they'll get triggered themselves. Oh, yeah. And they'll snap, or they'll get defensive, or they'll overreact. Especially if they're going into this at the heat of the moment. Can't do that. But they want to protect their own image. So they just don't enter the ring. They walk away. And by walking away, you're approving the behavior. Number seven, fear of rejection or disagreement. They want their perspective validated. But what if the person pushes? The fear of not being agreed with stops them before they start. And I've heard this one a lot. Oh, they'll never buy into that. They don't believe they're ever wrong. Yeah. Why? You fed them. Number eight, fear of escalation up to HR or higher up. Somebody's going to complain about you. It happens. I've had it happen to me. But if you're doing the right thing and you're doing it at the right time with the right conversational style, it's not going to get you in trouble. It may require a conversation or a justification. But some managers avoid issues because they don't want things to get official. They worry about the paper trail, potential retaliation, or being judged by their own boss. You got to have confidence in this. You're going to do the right thing. And the right thing is rarely ever criticized. Number nine, fear of hurting morale. You see, many managers think giving tough feedback will crush motivation instead of build it. In their minds, silence feels safer than risking disengagement. But in fact, the opposite is true. And I assure you, the more rapidly, the more directly, with the right style and approaches, the opposite is absolutely true. Nobody comes to work, unless they're a psychopath, nobody comes to work wanting to do a bad job. Almost everybody wants to come to work and have a good day. They want to please you. They want to get ahead in life. Tell them what they need to do to be successful. That's your job. And number 10, fear of confronting their own leadership gaps. Yeah. Sometimes we've contributed to this, very often by delaying the conversation. So we've avoided these difficult conversations because it shines light back on us, on you. And if they haven't set clear expectations, maybe they've gone about it too quickly or skipped some steps. Looking back on it, the failure is partially theirs. Maybe you haven't been consistent, or maybe you haven't put the work in to build trust. Then confronting someone else's performance feels hypocritical. So many managers duck it. I covered this very topic in my previous podcast, the one right before this. So, do you know how to handle the conversation when the person you're addressing is clearly wrong? That's what we're going to get into now. Because sometimes you own it. Sometimes they're just wrong. And one of the toughest spots for any leader is this. Someone on your team is flat out wrong. No debate. The data proves it. The facts prove it. And you know you're right. And yet, just dropping the hammer on them, steamrolling them with evidence, is the fastest way to hit all those 10 reasons in reality. You'll lose the person. You'll lose the trust. You'll lose the respect, the relationship. You don't want to do that. You don't want to come in hot. You don't want to come in with a monologue. You want to come in with a conversation. So let's zoom out. Why do you think people cling to bad ideas? Psychology calls it cognitive dissonance. When we're confronted with proof that contradicts what we believe, our brains fight back. We don't like to be wrong. It's uncomfortable. So if you come in it the wrong way, what you're going to get is an argument because you're threatening the ego. And so it's human nature very often to protect ourselves. The person you're talking to is going to protect themselves. And people double down instead of backing down. That's why just telling someone they're wrong almost never works. You may get compliance, but you won't always get long-term buy-in because it doesn't change their mind. Very often makes them feel that they need to dig deeper. That's passive aggression. And you won't know it until it doesn't get corrected. So here's the Aikido flip. Here's the Jedi move. Validate first, guide later. What is that? The smart play isn't correction. It's curiosity. So try this, and you'll love the way they respond. That's interesting take. Walk me through how you got there. Or, oh, okay, I want to understand your thinking, even if maybe we see it differently. When you approach it this way, open-ended, open to them first, a few things happen. One, you're showing curiosity and the fact you have not made up your mind. You're open to understanding their way of thinking. Plus, it gives you intel. And with that intel, you can now direct your conversation later, after you've got all the information from them, in a way that helps you dispel whatever is driving the wrong approach or the wrong decision. You have to be really careful of assuming intention, assuming that they don't know the right way and are just doing it the wrong way. If you assume you can't get burned and embarrassed, like I've shared in the book and in previous podcasts, you should always start with curiosity. Start with curiosity. You don't want to have a monologue, you want to have a dialogue, let them go first. How do I do that? Follow this path versus coming out, right out and just telling them what their mistake is. You're wrong. You screwed up. And they're not going to be eager to hear anything you have to say. Why? Because we're attacking their ego again. But if you start with obtaining their side of things, their perspective on things, you're lowering defenses. You're showing respect instead of coming in hot like an a-hole. And secondly, you actually get the full picture. That's the intel. Maybe they just flat out misunderstood or just didn't have the right context. Maybe you left something out of it. Maybe they just failed to listen. Maybe they didn't take notes. And third, you're building trust. And that trust is the currency of influence. Because once they feel heard, you've got them in the mood to be guided. You can now guide them, but you have to get them in the mood. You say something like this after you've gotten their perspective. Say, thanks for sharing all that. Can I share a few things from my end that makes this shift? Can I share a few things from my end that might shift how this looks? Notice this isn't forcing, it's inviting. I'm asking permission. And when people feel invited, they're far more open to shifting perspective. They've given you permission to share your side. And so the psychology is they're going to be more open to listening to you now. They're not in fight mode. This is the same concept FBI negotiator Chris Voss calls tactical empathy. He didn't get bank robbers to put their guns down by shouting facts at them. He built rapport. He made people feel understood. You ever heard a hostage negotiator or a law enforcement negotiator have these conversations? They're trying to understand what's going on in that person's mind. It helps lower the emotion, lower the defenses. And that's what saves lives. And this same principle will improve your leadership and it will save your conversations. However, when emotions are running hot, you have to be careful with that, because if that person comes in at you being really defensive, maybe even disrespectful, and it happens, you must be prepared for that. And here's how you prepare. One, you don't want to take the bait. So be prepared for that. And here's a great line from Jefferson Fisher. That was unkind, but I'm still here to have the conversation when you're really ready to speak respectfully. See, that one sentence does three powerful things. It names the behavior without escalating. It sets a boundary. You've kept your cool. It shows maturity. It shows control. And you're not going to get escalated or triggered into an argument. That was rather cruel. That was unkind. But I'm still here to have the conversation if you're ready to speak respectfully. Well, often that hits almost like an embarrassment button in the person who just was rude to you, disrespectful to you. And then go silent. Count to 5 in your head. Don't feel compelled to fill the space. Let them fill it. Let them feel it. And more often than not, they'll cool them down. Here's a real world example. Picture this. your team member points the finger at another department for a missed deadline. It's natural. Most of us, when we're wrong, want to start looking for a scapegoat. But however, you know the truth in this case. It was their lack of planning. That's why they missed the deadline. And instead of saying, no, you're wrong, you dropped the ball, I disagree with you, you say something, well, help me understand how that timeline slept. What happened in your point of view? Let them talk. You're finding out their side of things. You're letting them speak. You're lowering the resistance. You're lowering their emotion. You're being reasonable with them. You're not attacking them. And then once you've gotten that intel, you understand their perspective. You always let them go first. Then you get the chance to guide them. Thanks for sharing that. I've now got some visibility into this sequence that might help us both see this more clearly. Want me to walk you through it? So I've gotten it, and then I can guide them. I can guide them saying, thanks for sharing that with me. Now I understand. You're not justifying that they were wrong, that they dropped anything. You're not coddling them. You now understand, and you're showing understanding. And I'm going to share some ideas how we can do this next time, that we can get past this bump in the road. Want me to walk you through it? You're not rubbing their face in it. You're helping them discover the truth for themselves. Ever notice how you can, sometimes when you're talking through, outwardly talking through a problem or a challenge, how you come up with your own solution as you're saying it, but as long as you keep it in your head, you will never be able to pull it out, look at it. It's so intangible. Now, the situations where they've screwed up, the situations where things have gone wrong, there's an infinite amount of variations, but the approach remains the same. It's the same process literally every time. And sometimes it's on us. Sometimes the leader forgets an important detail. That's not about us being right and them being wrong. We always have to remember the goal. It's not about being right or wrong. It's not about victory. Your mission is not victory, it's clarity. And if your focus is proving them wrong, you might win the battle, but you're going to lose the person. And the language you want to use sounds like this. Okay, all right. I can see how you arrived at that. Here's another way to look at it. You want to help me think through this? It opens the door, and it makes it a shared reality. It's not pointed at them for blame or them being wrong. It's us. It's us working through that. You've lowered their energy. They've shared their perspective. You've respected them. You can now gain respect in return. And you can reframe it as growth. It's a teachable moment. Mistakes are okay. And you have to be able to tolerate some level of mistakes. But we have to use these mistakes or missteps as opportunities to learn and grow. So always make sure you're reframing, not that you're wrong. Well, what can we learn from this? How can we make sure in the future we don't do this again? So we're not having this conversation. My goal is always not to have this conversation again. And when they finally do see the truth, when you finally see that they are agreeing with you, they get it. Don't gloat. Reinforce the win by saying, man, I really appreciate you looking at this with me. Conversations like this make me a whole lot sharper. How about you? That's how you build a culture of growth instead of perfection. Now, by the way, if you're trying to take notes during this podcast, it's all in the book. Get it for free. So the takeaway from today, when someone's wrong, here's your checklist. 3 simple things you need to remember. Don't correct, connect. Don't dominate, guide. Don't dictate, guide. And don't react. Breathe. Don't take the bait. Don't allow yourself to get triggered. You're in control. This isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the leader in the room. The leaders know clarity beats control every time. So say less, listen more, guide with humility, and sit back and watch the walls come down. So let me wrap this up. This wraps up today's episode. Don't forget, subscribe, share, drop a like if this hits home with you. And if you haven't yet grabbed your free copy of the book, I've only said it about 20 times, The Roadmap to Difficult Conversations, use the link in the show notes. Get the guide. It's going to make your life so much easier. I'm Vaughn Sigmon. This is the Business Mechanic Show. And now get out there and get at it.